Hey you guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. It's another cold and dreary day, and instead of focusing on winter, today we're talking pre-spawn. We're going back underwater. It's time for some more underwater bass fishing. We're going to study bass behavior as they interact with bluegill style baits. Everything from little drop shot worms to small swim baits to big swim baits. Let's go. It's cold today, and I'm not the only one. Everybody north of here is freezing. Some of the guys south of here are freezing. Wintertime, it'll wear on you, and we know that. So one of our favorite things to do when it gets cold and dreary and you're getting beat down because you wish you were fishing is to look ahead. So today we're talking pre-spawn. I know we're early, but I don't want to talk about snow. I don't want to talk about cold. So let's look to the future. Let's get some inspiration going into the springtime. So today we're focusing on bluegill baits. The reason why is that headed into the pre-spawn, bass will start moving shallow. They go shallower and shallower, and ultimately they go up and spawn. During that process, this war begins between bass and bluegill. They interact okay the rest of the year, but come spawning time, come springtime shallow water fishing, those bluegill are not just terrorizing those bass, they are eating the eggs of those bass. So this war ensues. Bass love to mow down bluegill in the springtime. So there are all sorts of different ways to imitate a bluegill. Of course, you can do it with a bluegill swim bait. That's the bulk of what we'll talk about today. But you can also do it with a variety of drop shot baits. You can do it with all sorts of different lures if you pay attention to color and how you work those baits. So today I've got 6 soft baits, 1 hard bait, and a couple of drop shot worms. We're going underwater, and we're going to watch how fish interact with these baits. Now, to kick it off, let's start with the gantarelle. The gantarelle is the only hard bait in the mix. It's got this beautiful, slow swim, but I like to work it aggressively. I like to pull and pop and work that rod so this thing, it'll slow swim, and then you give it a pull, and it'll take off and dart. Take off and dart. Now, this is the only bait in today's mix that I have no underwater footage of, but I'm going to make up for it with this footage, because how do you take a bait that has caught big largemouth for me, it's caught big smallmouth for me, and it has caught giant arapaima? You're talking fish in the hundreds of pounds eating a gantarelle, and I'm praying that that size 1 treble hook is going to hold. Some of the most chaotic fishing of my entire life happened with that gantarelle. So I admit we have no underwater footage of this one, and it's in an underwater video, but we're talking bluegill baits. How do we not include it? Now, just that footage just always gets me jacked up. That was unbelievable. It was so much fun, and there's more coming on that. That's just a teaser. You guys know there's a full video coming, but we had such a blast catching those fish on a variety of hard baits, all artificials. It was amazing. So setting the gantarelle down, that's the only hard bait. Let's start talking soft baits. We'll start with the drop shot, and then we'll work our way up in size through the swim baits. Now, drop shot baits on their own don't really scream bluegill, right? They don't scream bluegill imitator. But we know that in the spring, those bass are mowing down those bluegill. And we know that on a good day, you can go out there with big swim baits and slay those fish. But sometimes it's not a good day. Sometimes the weather, it's just not cooperating. Those fish slow down, they're sitting on bottom, they're not as aggressive. When you turn to bluegill colored worms, you can do so much damage. So this is an X-Zone Slammer. This is the Big Bite Baits Smallie Smasher. 2 of my absolute favorite worms for imitating bluegill in the springtime, slow fishing on a drop shot. You use aggressive movement and then you let it stall. And those fish just mow them down. Now let's switch gears and talk soft swim baits. We're staying underwater and we've got footage of every single one of these baits, all 6 of these swim baits being eaten. This first one, we're going to go smallest to largest, okay? This first one, Megabass Dark Sleeper. We've talked about this bait a lot. Everything from Great Lakes smallmouth to great big largemouth. Everything eats that dark sleeper. It's an amazing bait. It gets bit extremely well, and the fish just cannot resist it. Now, I am gonna link in the video description below this video all of these baits. We know that it's early. We know that it's not quite bluegill season yet, but the problem is, come the time of year when you want these baits, most of them you can't even get. Some of these are back ordered for half of the year or more every year. So we'll link them all for you. If there's a bait you like, a style you like, you can check them out there. Next up is this little guy right here. That is the little storm sunfish. They make a sunfish and a bluegill. Both are dynamite budget baits. I mean, you're talking about spending a couple bucks a bait for a swim bait that will actually perform and will actually get eaten. I have personally netted. I had a friend on my boat that stuck an actual double-digit largemouth on that little storm sunfish right there. And I had the pleasure of scooping that fish. Unbelievable, but they just love to eat this little guy. Now next up is this guy right here, the All-American Sunfish. Small bait, basic colors. You rig it on a beast hook. That's the way to rig that guy. It stays weedless. It's a very thin profile. And you just swim this guy along. You can swim it mid-column. You can bump bottom with it. Again, this time of year, bass will eat bluegill on their beds, around their beds, in the shallow waters, mid-column. They just don't like bluegill being anywhere near them in the springtime, and they will feed on them very aggressively. Sometimes they're feeding on them for food. Sometimes I believe they're just trying to kill those things and get them away from their house. Just get them out of here. That trash fish right there, that All-American Sunfish, just gets eaten. Next up is the Savage Bluegill. This one's made by Savage Gear. This little guy right here is hands down the most refined of the bunch. It's got a perfect little tail kick. It's got excellent balance in the water. It's got a great hook. And they actually make it with a jig hook or as a weedless bait. And I'll link both of them for you. But that little Savage Gear is a deadly, deadly bait this time of year. It's a small profile and they mow it down. Now these last two I'm going to combine into one. Okay, these are both mat lures. This is the U2 mat lures, a little smaller, and this is the mat lures hammer tail. Both are excellent bluegill imitators and are really the first of this style of bluegill imitator. These have been around in one form or another for a lot of years. Matt has been making baits a long time. He's made a lot of different versions, but both of these are deadly. Again, that smaller profile and that giant profile. Now you guys might remember a couple of years ago, one of my clients sticking an 11 pounder on camera on Clear Lake on this one right here. The mat lures as a whole are amazing baits, fantastic colors, and the fish just flat out eat them. Well, what did you guys think? Was that awesome footage? It is so much fun to watch those fish interact with those different baits. Whether it's a fish up in the shallows, just running down a bluegill and just plowing that thing, or it's a fish that's defending its nest and does not want bluegill coming anywhere near it. Springtime is right around the corner. Here we are, early February, freezing cold, but every year I'm shocked how quickly we transition from this to full-blown spring chaos. It's almost overnight those fish hit the shallows. Few days later, they're right on the bank, eating aggressively, mowing down bluegill, mowing down bait fish, eating crawdads, just bulking up. And then all of a sudden, blink of an eye, they're spawning. It happens so fast. I'm constantly caught unprepared. So for one video, I just wanted to jump ahead, get your guys' minds right, because it is just around the corner. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, leave a comment, tell us what you thought. Did you have a favorite bait? Was there one of your favorites that wasn't in the video? Tell us that too. We're always trying new baits. Would love to try something different. But if you enjoyed it, again, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.